Welcome back to another edition of Fantasy Alarm's ADP TV. I'm Howard Bender. We've got NFL trades going on. There are NFL injuries cropping up, and we've got lots of NFL news and notes coming out of training camp, which is causing a shift in the fantasy football ADP. If you still have your fantasy football draft coming up, well, you need to know who's rising up draft boards, who's falling down draft boards. So that way, when you make your pick, you're getting the best value you can possibly get. So let's start off with a little 3 up, 3 down. And that means we start with the fantasy football ADP risers. And it begins with wide receiver Dynami Brown from the Washington Commanders. The Eagles and Commanders made a trade that the Eagles acquired Jahan Dotson for a couple of changes in draft picks. But what that does is that puts Dynami Brown as the number 2 wide receiver opposite Terry McLaurin. He's been going undrafted in most leagues, and now he's going to probably pop. Not too high, but maybe around rounds 11 or 12. You might want to take a look at him. He's a good field stretcher. He's got lots of speed. And if Jaden Daniels is going to throw that hero ball up, Dynami Brown's going to be the one to come down with it. Number 2, Rashee Rice. We just found out that the civil case pending against him won't be heard until early December. We still don't have a date for the criminal case, which means that Rashee Rice is not going to be suspended here in 2024. And that immediately pushes him up draft boards. Recent drafts have shown that he's going in the late 4th, early 5th round. I think if you want Patrick Mahomes' number 1 target, you got to make that move in the late 4th. And it's going to be worth it. I believe it is. And then finally here, the last riser, Bo Nix, quarterback for the Denver Broncos. Sean Payton named Bo Nix the starter for week 1, which means that the rookie's going to be center stage in the Mile High City. Now, he's still nothing more than a QB3 in like a super flex league. Maybe you can throw a dart at him very, very late as a backup quarterback in a single QB league. But let's face it, rookies, they always have their growing pains. And while, yes, he did run a similar offense to what they run in Denver back in Oregon, it's still going to have a few nuances and a few changes. I'm high on Bo Nix, especially in Dynasty, but you got to take it with a grain of salt here in redraft leagues. So those are the risers. How about the other side? Let's get to our fantasy football ADP fallers, and that begins with, you guessed it, Jahan Dotson, wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles. He goes from being potentially the number 2 wide receiver in Washington to number 3 on the depth chart in Philadelphia, and probably 4th in the target pecking order behind A.J. Brown, behind Devonta Smith, and possibly even behind Dallas Goedert. He's been a very disappointing field stretcher since he came into the NFL. A lot of people still have some belief in him. I have none at all. I'm not even drafting him. He's fallen off my boards immediately. Number 2, Jonathon Brooks. We just got word that the ACL rehab that he's undergoing is going to keep him out till about week 3 or week 4 of the regular season. So that means Jonathon Brooks is going to be dropping down draft boards, and that's okay because you're going to want to take him out of value anyway. We know Dave Canales loves to run the football, and we know eventually it will be Jonathon Brooks. But you can watch the ADP with Jonathon Brooks and Chuba Hubbard. It's going to start to level off. If you can handcuff the 2 of them together, that's the move. But Brooks, late season value in later rounds of your drafts. And then finally here, Kendre Miller. This one hurts a little bit because I was actually a big fan of Kendre Miller as the handcuff to Alvin Kamara. Dennis Allen has not once, not twice, but 3 times now criticized Kendre Miller for constantly being hurt, dealing with the soft tissue injuries. And the quote was, he's not making this team from the trainer's room. So that means that the primary handcuff to Alvin Kamara right now is likely Jamal Williams. Maybe something happens over the next 2.5 weeks that surprises us with Kendre Miller, but right now, strictly disappointing. That's going to do it for this episode of ADP TV. Check out all the stuff we've got over at fantasyalarm.com. We are constantly updating everything. And do yourself a favor. Go to fantasyalarm.com/win. Use the promo code Let's Go. We'll give you 50% off your first month. You get the draft guide, the cheat sheets, and then you become a ride or die with me and the rest of the Fantasy Alarm family as we guide you to a championship. We'll see you all in the money this year.